Tonight, a small town scandal when a beloved minister is killed.
And his wife and children go missing, but for how long and why? 2020 starts right now.
Why do you think the public was captivated with this story?
It was something that was so totally unexpected.
Someone had broken into the home, killed Matthew with the gunshot, and then took Mary and the girls and left.
A church pastor is dead, and his family is missing at this hour.
When you add religion to murder and then sprinkle in abuse, everyone's in shock and no one knows who to believe.
This is pretty telling. The killer unplugged the phone.
Yes.
So no one could call anyone for help.
People were frantic, thinking that there may be a killer on the loose.
The most important thing to them right now is to find Mary Winkler and find the 3 girls.
So how does that missing wife and mother go from lost to found?
Ma'am, get out of the vehicle. Get your hands out of the vehicle now. Get out.
Winding up in a police investigation.
I have nerve now, and I have self-esteem, and so my ugly came out.
I guess my ugly came out. What does that mean?
We could not have fathomed what actually did come out, not in our wildest thoughts.
This is stuff that doesn't happen to church folks.
The ugly side came out. Somebody ended up shot dead.
It became one of the biggest, most talked about stories in the entire country. And it all started here in the heart of the Bible Belt, in this small church in the tiny town of Selmer, Tennessee. Matthew Winkler would preach to his congregation every Sunday morning here about right and wrong and about living your life in the service of God.
On March 22nd, 2006, everyone was gathering at the church, ready for the Wednesday night service.
Matthew Winkler was pretty new at being the new head preacher, so he certainly didn't miss any services.
It's unheard of for the preacher, his wife, and his daughters who are there every week, and they don't show up.
But even though they kept watching the door, waiting for him to come through it with apologies and messages of love for the congregation, it never happened.
Overcome with worry and concern, some of the members of the congregation take a 5-minute drive to the church parsonage behind me. It's where the minister, Matthew, his wife, and 3 children lived. Once inside, the church members make a shocking discovery.
We were knocking on the windows, knocking on the doors. At that point is when I felt that something was wrong because the key was on the inside of the door, the TV was on, and there was no answer.
At some point, they go inside the home, walk through, calling his name, calling Mary's name, calling for the girls.
We're yelling, "Is anyone in here? Can anybody hear us?"
They looked around, no Mary, no little girls. Everything looked normal, nothing looked out of place. But the master bedroom door was shut. They walked over and opened it, and all their nightmares were answered.
Saw Matthew laying there on his back. A foam was protruding from his mouth and nose. We knew pretty obviously that he was dead at that time. So we called 911, and then we all gathered in the living room and held hands and prayed for Mary and the children because we had assumed that they had been abducted.
Church members couldn't fathom who would kill their preacher. This was a man who, in fact, was considered religious royalty here in Tennessee, coming from a long line of distinguished ministers.
Also,
Mary was raised in a strict household in Knoxville, Tennessee. At South Doyle High School, she was known as a reserved student, with a good sense of humor.
She didn't draw a lot of attention to herself. That's also true of many women in the Churches of Christ Church. They don't want to bring a lot of attention on themselves.
Mary was cute as a button. She was always ready with a smile and a touch on the hand. And she just was the perfect embodiment of a Church of Christ woman.
Mary and Matthew met at Freed-Hardeman College. It's a college affiliated with the Church of Christ. And Mary has said that initially they were just friends, but then they started dating, and apparently Matthew must have liked her because 3 months later he asked her to marry him.
Both Matthew and Mary dropped out of school because they couldn't afford it anymore, and then Matthew got work as a youth minister in McMinnville, Tennessee. How would you describe the Church of Christ to someone who's not familiar with it?
It's very conservative, a Bible-based church. We say we have no creed but the Bible.
They believe in the literal interpretation of the Bible. And there are scriptures in the Bible that says that a woman is subservient to the man. Board of elders, the preacher, all of those in the leadership positions are men.
Tell me about Matthew's temperament.
Gregarious, somebody who could go into a room of strangers and make friends within minutes.
Magnetic personality.
Magnetic personality.
Your impression of Mary?
Mary seemed like a frail and vulnerable woman. She had a downcast look. She would not make eye contact, and she was walking 3 or 4 steps behind Matthew.
Matthew had this feeling he couldn't measure up to his father. He bristled under just being a youth minister. He wanted to be the preacher of his own church.
It was in January of 2005 that Matthew and Mary Winkler moved here to the town of Selmer. Matthew had just landed his dream job, named the head pastor.
Almost every corner you'll find a church.
True happiness is found in God's Word. True happiness is not only found in God's Word, it's found by living the way God says to live in that Word.
The Winklers found a wonderful church in Selmer, Tennessee, and the people of the community and congregation embraced them and welcomed them. It seemed like the perfect scenario. That is, until March 22nd of 2006, when that beloved young minister was found dead on the floor of his bedroom.
Was it a kidnapping and it just went wrong?
Someone definitely intended to kill Matthew Winkler.
In a small town, people were frantic, thinking there was a killer on the loose.
And where were Mary and the girls?
Had someone unknown come into the home, killed Matthew, and gone off in the family van with the 3 girls and Mary, holding them captive.
On March 21st, 2006, in the small town of Selmer, Tennessee, Matthew and Mary Winkler, along with their 3 little girls, settled in for a quiet evening at home. They order pizza and watch the animated movie Chicken Little.
The sky is falling! The sky is falling!
But somehow, this everyday peaceful family activity would turn into a gruesome crime scene with seemingly deadly intention.
Matthew Winkler was shot in the back with a 12-gauge shotgun. 12-gauge shotgun is either used to hunt or personal protection, and it's used to kill. My initial thought was someone definitely intended to kill Matthew Winkler.
Members of the 4th Street Church of Christ find their beloved minister, Matthew Winkler, dead in his home, just minutes away from the sanctuary. They immediately call the police. Where were you when you got the phone call?
I was at home, of course, in bed, or getting ready to go to bed. Then I immediately started reaching out to the agents and the crime scene team to get them to start responding to this location.
When the police came into the house, they cleared all the church members out, but they interviewed them as well and started picking apart the scene, looking for anything that could give them information.
They would have started with the interior, taking photographs, taking measurements.
Nothing was out of place. It wasn't ransacked, looking for valuables. But what would stand out is when you got to the back bedroom.
There were blood stains on the pillows. There were blood stains on the floor.
Matthew was laying beside the bed, and that's where he was found.
But you think he was shot while he was still in bed?
Yes, and he would have rolled over.
Investigators were thinking of a lot of things that this scenario suggested.
You have someone fatally wounded. No one else is around. Is this some type of robbery that had turned into murder?
Was this a vendetta or was it a kidnapping? And it just went wrong.
At that point, you don't know?
You don't know. I mean, it's a mystery.
What do we have here?
This is actually the bed.
This is the
That
bed.
would have been where he was sleeping.
Could have been shot from here or from here.
Well, probably from this side.
Right.
He was shot on the bed, so that tells you that the shooter had no confrontation with him. There was no defense that Matthew could have put up, being that he was shot in the back.
And this is the shotgun shell.
It's actually the round that killed him.
Over here, this is the bird shot.
That's some of the bird shot
recovered from his body.
Correct.
This is the actual shotgun.
Yes, sir.
Can you show it to us?
That's 12 gauge pump.
What kind of damage can it do? Close up.
Well, lots of damage.
A 12-gauge shotgun shooting birdshot, when it makes impact, it's going to explode with all of these pellets. And Matthew had somewhere over 70 pellets in his back.
And for investigators, each crime scene tells its own story. And this one would reveal a chilling detail. It seemed that the perpetrator wanted to seal Matthew's fate with absolute certainty.
They were very disturbed when they noticed the telephone, clearly placed in a position that was out of Matthew's reach. And it was disconnected from the wall jack.
So the killer unplugged the phone.
Yes.
So no one could call anywhere for help.
That's what we believe. Even if he was able to survive or even live long enough to reach up and grab the receiver and hit zero, it wasn't going to work.
There is breaking news that we've been following all day out of Selmer, Tennessee. It is a case of tragedy in a small town. A church pastor is dead.
While investigators were combing through the crime scene, news of the death of the much-beloved preacher Matthew Winkler shook Selmer to its core.
And, you know, it's just shock. Everybody's just in shock about it.
This is the 4th Street Church of Christ here in Selmer, and all day long, church members have been coming and going. You can see it in their faces how distraught they are about the death of Pastor Matthew Winkler.
Who would have done something like this? Everybody loved him from what we understood.
People were frantic, thinking that there may be a killer somewhere in their community.
And do police have a motive they're working on? Any kind of theory here?
Now, they are telling us very, very little about this.
Matthew was often approached by people who had addiction problems or financial problems. What if Matthew turned one of those people away? What if they had come back in anger?
An Amber Alert is issued for 3 little girls.
Police need to find Mary Winkler, 1-year-old Brianna, 6-year-old Mary Alice, and 8-year-old Patricia.
They, along with their gray minivan, were missing. Were they in danger?
An Amber Alert is issued for 3 little girls. They disappeared from their home in Selmer, Tennessee. Their mother is missing as well. Church members found their father, Pastor Matthew Winkler, dead.
With the young minister found dead in his bedroom, the community of Selmer was on edge.
There was a possibility this could have been a burglary that turned into murder.
Who is here in our community would do that? You know, this person's loose. People were worried.
Take a look at the van the mother and the children may be in. It is a 2006 gray Toyota Sienna.
The most important thing to them right now is to find Mary Winkler and find the 3 girls.
Almost 24 hours after the discovery of Matthew's body, there's a sighting of a gray minivan matching the description of the Winklers' missing vehicle. It was spotted in the seaside community of Orange Beach, Alabama.
That shoreline is particularly spectacular. They call it the Gold Coast of Alabama.
1025. I was traveling westbound on the road directly behind us.
That's it. 10-4, that's the vehicle.
And this van pulled right out in front of me, a Toyota Sienna minivan, matching the description of the van we'd been looking for.
10-4, we're pulling in the parking lot. 10-33.
Knowing that there was a possibility that Mary and her girls had been kidnapped, they were extremely cautious approaching that vehicle. They had their guns out.
Ma'am, get out of the vehicle. Get your hands out of the vehicle now. Get out. Step out of the vehicle. Put the vehicle in park and step out.
There she was, Mary Winkler, in a pink jumpsuit, looking as innocent as anybody walking down the street could look.
With no supposed kidnapper behind the wheel.
Walk back. Walk back. Keep walking.
Mary Winkler goes from being a potential victim to a suspect in her husband's death.
She got out and she never asked why she was stopped, why there was officers pointing guns at her or anything. She made no really expression on her face, and she was detained.
Hey girl, how you doing?
After we detained her, we ran to the minivan to check the welfare of the children. They just kept repeating, what's going on, where's mommy going?
Did my mama do anything?
Shortly after Mary's arrest, police search the minivan and they make a stunning discovery.
It was soon after Mary was apprehended by the Orange Beach Police Department. A shotgun was found in the minivan.
You've heard the term, you know, we found the smoking gun. Well, that's exactly what we thought. We had found the smoking gun, and it was just our job now to put the facts and the details together.
Back in 2006, Stan Stabler was a corporal with the Alabama Bureau of Investigation.
I received a call from Orange Beach Police Department that evening. They requested that I come to interview Mary Winkler.
It's March 23, it's about 9:55 p.m. We're at Orange Beach PD. I'm Stan Stabler with ABI. If you would just speak your name for me, please, ma'am.
Mary Winkler.
When we first started, I got a lot of background information about her, their marriage.
How long have you been married?
9 years, 11 months.
How was your marriage?
Good.
We talked about the children.
I met your daughters, and very sweet girls. Had McDonald's, they eat, they're wrapped up in blankets, warm, watching a movie.
Thank you.
I wanted to build a rapport with Mary where she felt comfortable with me.
Want something to drink?
Water's fantastic.
Okay.
Sitting across from him is this eerily calm mother of 3, 400 miles away from home. Stan Stabler wondered why did Mary Winkler drive her girls all the way to Orange Beach, Alabama.
They've never been to a beach that they remember. This is just my last time to be with them. I just want to be with them before they had bad days. To have a happy day.
She wanted to spend some time with the girls because she felt that she would not be seeing them after she was caught.
I asked her about anyone else involved, you know, an affair.
Y'all didn't have any major problems going on?
No.
Anybody else involved with either party?
Oh, no.
She was not as emotional as a person should be if they learned about the murder of their spouse.
Just go step from step and tell me what happened.
I just can't.
Why can't you talk to us? Is it me? I mean...
No.
She was very strong-willed not to disclose a lot of details.
I want to hear your side.
I appreciate I feel like you have genuine concern, and I do appreciate you.
Tell me why a mother of 3, a wife of over 9 years, almost 10 years, what would make you do this? Why?
No comment.
It was a very, very strange interview.
Has he ever hurt you?
Not physically.
She said she did not want to talk about Matthew because she didn't, quote, want to smear him.
No matter what, in the end, I don't want him smeared.
All we are seeking the truth. And we're not here to smear anybody.
Corporal Stabler asks Mary about that shotgun that police suspect she used to kill her husband.
Did you load it?
I messed it up and then put it back.
Where was it?
We keep it in the top of the closet out of reach.
The truth started coming out. Mary admitted she was holding that gun. She didn't admit that she pulled the trigger. She said she didn't remember that.
How many times did you shoot? Just one time?
Surely not.
Huh?
Surely not.
How do you know you didn't shoot more than once?
I don't.
And then finally, after almost 2 hours of questioning, a possible motive.
I love you dearly. But gosh, he could just nail me in the ground. I have nerve now, and I have self-esteem. And so my ugly came out.
When the ugly side came out, somebody ended up shot dead.
For almost 2 hours, Corporal Stan Stabler prods Mary Winkler about her relationship with her late husband, Matthew.
Mary Winkler eventually, during that interview in Alabama, did tell investigators that he picked on her. What she was describing as someone who was abusive.
How would he run you down?
Just chewing on it, yeah.
Just fussing at you,
Just
nagging all the
mistakes.
time?
And some well-deserved, by all means.
I think it's old.
But gosh, I don't want to talk about that now. I love you dearly. But gosh, he could just nail me in the ground. I just took it like a mouse. Didn't think anything different. I never spoke up.
She told me he was a good man. He was a good father. He was a good husband. She said, you know, at times he would get mad. She related it to blood pressure problems.
But he was so good. He was so good, too. A lot of times he had high blood pressure, but he'd never go enough to the doctor to get medicine for it. There's no sense, you know, just say the lady was a moron, evil woman.
She said she had had thoughts in the past about killing him.
Yeah, I didn't just get up and say, hey, let's see how this thing works. I've been battling it not to do that for him, and I don't know why.
Was he chewing on you when it happened?
I don't even know.
Mary had said that she got a job. Then she said her self-esteem started coming out. And then she started speaking up about things she didn't like.
I have nerve now, and I have self-esteem. And so my ugly came out.
When the ugly side came out, somebody ended up shot dead. So that's what Mary's ugly side is. The side that shoots her husband in the back with a shotgun.
Mary waived her right to an extradition hearing and willingly went back to face justice in Tennessee.
While in Tennessee, investigators from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation take another statement from Mary, which she initials.
And this time, Mary drops a few bombshells about the morning Matthew was killed. While she never admits to pulling the trigger of the shotgun, Mary does tell TBI agents she heard a loud boom, wiped blood from Matthew's mouth, and told him she was sorry.
It became real obvious that there was only one thing for the police in Tennessee to do, and that was to charge her with murder.
The startling account of a pastor's wife accused of killing her husband becomes big national news.
This is Good Morning America.
That murder mystery that has stunned everyone. A popular minister in Tennessee gunned down in his home, and the confessed killer is his young wife. Why?
People were like, what?
People were wondering what would cause them to have their ugly come out.
Knowing Mary the way I did, I knew that he had to do something to push her over.
Mary's sisters say they saw a change in Mary once she got married.
I don't remember hearing her laugh. She was not a happy person.
Mary's other sister, Amanda, and her father, Clark, say they saw bruises on Mary.
I didn't say anything because if I was to say who gave that to you and that would make her mad, I wouldn't see her again.
I saw terrible bruises, the heaviest of makeup covering facial bruises. So one day I confronted her and I said, Mary Carol, you are coming off as a very abused wife. And Mary Carol would hang her head and say, no, Dad, everything's all right, everything's all right. And several times I talked very seriously to her about leaving him, and she just did not want to. I feel so bad about this. I feel like I have a part in it. I should have talked more to Mary Carol.
There were people who said that they did see a short temper in Matthew. According to the neighbor, their dog had gotten into the Winkler yard, and Matthew yelled at the neighbor.
He said, keep the damn dogs out of our yard or we'll shoot them. He had a temper on him. I've never met a preacher like him.
This never rose where it was ever a volatile encounter with somebody. It was just being stern, like the dog, hey, please do this. I've warned you.
As investigators dig deep into the Winklers' lives, they come to believe that Matthew's killing may actually have been about money.
That's what was the root of the evil in this whole situation.
According to them, Mary was knee-deep in financial fraud, and investigators suspect that weighing heavily on her mind was an upcoming trip to the local bank.
The bankers set a meeting for Mary and Matthew to meet at the bank on March 22nd.
I think she was desperate and afraid.
Mrs. Winkler is set for arraignment before a McNairy County judge.
After Matthew's death, Mary appeared in a Selmer courtroom, trading in her Sunday best for an orange jumpsuit.
It was somewhat of a shocking vision because she just does not look like anyone who could do anything like shoot her husband.
State of Tennessee versus Mary Carol Winkler. You're charged
under Tennessee Code with first-degree murder.
After pleading not guilty to first-degree murder, Mary is led away in shackles.
Outside of the courthouse, church members stood in solidarity with the preacher's wife.
We had a special prayer for her at church last night, and we forgave her.
It's in God's plan, but there has to be a reason, because if we can't believe that, we cannot go on.
Mary's supporters believe that her years of alleged abuse culminated in the accidental shooting death of her husband. But investigators say the real motive in this case was money.
Early on in the investigation, TBI was interviewing local banks, and they more or less came to the TBI and said, "We got to tell you what's going on here."
Investigators have learned from bank officials that Mary was in over her head financially after they say she got caught up in a so-called lottery scam, which was sweeping the country.
A lottery scam is when you get email or even a letter that tells you that you have won a lottery.
Here's how it works. The scammer sends a counterfeit check for an initial payment worth thousands of dollars. Now, in return, you're supposed to send them money to cover the processing fees.
The scammers make money off what you send them. Meanwhile, all you get is a worthless check.
Mary had entered all sorts of things. So when she got this saying that she'd won $250,000, she believed him.
What do we have here?
These are bogus checks.
So Mary Winkler got these checks in the mail.
Yes.
And she thought, wow, $4,880, $4,900.
Yeah. You're going to receive lots more once you send us the money, but she did not send the money back. She kept all the money. Back in those days, if a person deposited a check or cashed a check, they would actually receive the complete amount of money because it immediately went into your bank account.
Back then, you just didn't have the automation like you have today. So it could take weeks for the checks to come back as counterfeit. So when that happened, the banks wanted their money back from Mary, over $16,000.
And that is when investigators allege Mary cooked up a scheme of her own to cover her losses.
She was actually writing checks for one bank to cover checks at another bank.
What investigators say Mary was doing is called check kiting, floating funds between banks, and that's where the kite comes in.
And in doing so, she knew that she didn't have the funds in that bank to cover the charges, and that is an illegal act.
It's easy to see how desperation can lead you down that path where you're trying to find a way out and you don't know what to do.
Was there any evidence that Matthew, her husband, the minister, was in on this or knew about it?
We have no evidence because he never went to the bank. He never had his name on anything. These other accounts was in her name, so he wouldn't have access to her accounts.
According to investigators, Mary went to great lengths to conceal her alleged financial crimes from Matthew. They say she opened up a personal account out of town, changed her mailing address to a P.O. box, and she even tried to remove Matthew's name from their bank account. But investigators say Mary's alleged financial scheme fell apart after one late deposit sent her bank account into a tailspin.
I think it got a little out of hand because she got at some point like $5,000 overdrawn, which is a really bad position to be in. $5,000 in 2006 on a small town pastor's pay and a substitute teacher. You might as well say $100,000.
Things came to a head on March 21st, 2006. That day, Mary Winkler was working as a substitute teacher here at Selmer Elementary School. She receives an urgent call from the bank asking her to come in the very next day to clear up her overdrawn account. And they tell her to bring her husband, Matthew, along.
In fact, in this statement to TBI, Mary admitted to having a heated discussion with Matthew about their finances the night before the shooting. She says, "I had gotten a call from the bank, and we were having troubles. Mostly my fault. Bad bookkeeping." And then she goes on to say that the two were upset with each other and that she got to a point and snapped.
Do you think this is why she killed him?
Oh, yes. That somebody's going to have to face the music, and it was going to come back on her.
There must have been a lot of pressure on Mary to keep that away from Matthew. It was going to be embarrassing for the Church of Christ congregation. It was going to speak very loudly that something's amiss in this family. It's a reflection of the church. It's a reflection of God.
How's Mary feeling?
Prosecutors might think this is an open and shut case, but as Mary's murder trial gets underway, no one could imagine the twists and turns to come.
Mary Winkler had what appeared to everyone a marriage made in heaven, but behind closed doors, it was a living hell.
Ms. Winkler, if you'll come forward, please, ma'am.
And when the demure preacher's wife takes the stand, dark and lurid details would soon come to light.
Did it hurt you?
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness gracious.
This is stuff that doesn't happen to church folks.
Preacher's wife does not wear this kind of shoe.
Had there been a quiet rage brewing,
We could not have fathomed what actually did come out, not in our wildest thoughts.
The spiritual leader of the community. And now he's got a hellacious shotgun wound in his back. And his wife wants you to believe that she was driven to it.
She certainly wasn't acting like someone who'd shot her husband in the back.
I don't know that anyone anywhere had any idea of what was to come in this trial.
so it got heated in the jury room.
How are you going to defend yourself? He threatened me with the shotgun many times, put it in my face.
Mary Winkler appeared to have had a marriage made in heaven, but behind closed doors, it was a living hell.
When they brought out the shoe and the wig, there was a gasp in the courtroom.
Matthew wanted me to wear it to dress up.
Dress up for what purpose, Mary?
Sex.
Oh my God, wow.
But if you looked up spousal abuse in the dictionary, you're going to see Mary Winkler's picture looking back at you.
Was Mary Winkler a victim or a villain?
Will the real Mary Winkler please stand up?
A grand jury had indicted Mary Winkler on a first-degree murder charge for the killing of her preacher husband, Matthew Winkler. She pled not guilty and went back to McMinnville after her father posted her $750,000 bond. Mary's 3 girls continued living with Matthew's parents, whom they'd been with since Mary's arrest.
Everywhere, everyone was covering the story of Mary Winkler. When you put the story in a nutshell, this preacher's wife shoots her husband in the back while he's sleeping and then takes her daughters to the beach. That sounds outrageous, absolutely outrageous. How can you not follow that story?
Well, people were wondering what would bring someone to this breaking point. What would cause them to have their ugly come out? And I think that was the big question.
And the fact this happened in the heart of the South, in the Bible Belt, was like fascinating to people because it wasn't supposed to happen. These are supposed to be godly people. Well, you know, godly does not mean perfect. And Mary proved that very well.
So this is the cleaners where Mary worked?
Yes. We're at the dry cleaners, Dry Cleaning Express, where Mary worked during her bond supervision. I would have to come and check on her.
What were your impressions of her during that bond period?
She was just real quiet, reserved.
We all just really loved her, and you know, we got to be good friends. And we picked up a lot of new customers from her church that has decided to do business here because they want to be supportive of Mary.
But one question dividing the people of the town following the case at the time: was Mary actually the quiet preacher's wife everyone thought they knew, or was there another side to her, like the one Libby St. John and her husband at the time saw one night at a restaurant in McMinnville?
Well, we had been in there sitting at the bar, and Mary came in, and she was chain smoking cigarettes and drinking. It just seemed like she was so carefree that evening that it just shocked me. I almost wanted to go over there and say, listen, this isn't a good idea for you to be doing this. The owner of that establishment said while she was out on bond, she'd been there to celebrate several different occasions and her birthday recently. And so she'd been there several times. It just wasn't a one-off. You don't usually see Church of Christ preachers' wives smoking. She certainly wasn't acting like someone who'd shot her husband in the back.
And your husband at the time starts taking pictures.
He took them with his cell phone. The pictures made quite a splash when they came out.
These cell phone pictures, first obtained by Action News 5, are the talk of this quiet town.
I remember the bar pictures, the very things that seemed completely out of character from what anybody's seen.
She was not supposed to be drinking.
Well, I think that basically it was not excessive alcohol. I think that's what was on the bond.
But it didn't look good.
No, I'm sure it didn't look, no, it probably didn't look good. It didn't sit well with people.
The way this came to us, this was like walking into a Kafka novel. Nothing lines up with logic.
Her life was taking some strange turns that didn't make any sense.
Her outward appearance changed, her clothing changed. It was like someone flipped a switch.
And when she started kind of hanging out at night, there was a feeling that this was a little quick. Why are you doing this? Maybe were you that the whole time? And it just gave people pause.
Will the real Mary Winkler please stand up? Is she the quiet, docile minister's wife, or is she something quite different?
With the trial gearing up, everyone was about to hear a tale they never expected from the preacher's wife.
Yeah. I don't know that anyone in Selma, a few people anywhere, had any idea of what was to come in this trial.
Mary's murder trial began on April 9, 2007, with the prosecution pushing for a first-degree conviction. The case was one of the biggest things the small town of Selma, Tennessee has ever seen. The media put this tiny courthouse right in the middle of the public's attention.
Television stations from Nashville, from Memphis, some from Huntsville, Alabama, were there in the courthouse because this was such a big story.
What was interesting was Mary Winkler arriving with her attorneys, appearing about as meek as you could appear.
Inside, the courtroom was packed, and the crowd included members of both families.
You had Matthew Winkler's parents there. Mary Winkler's family was there, her father.
We may begin with opening statements. The state may proceed first.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walt Freeland. I'm an assistant district attorney. My strategy, like in every case, is to put on all my facts, because facts are stubborn things. You have to set aside whatever you think might have happened and just listen to the facts. There is no good reason why Matthew Winkler was murdered by Mary Winkler.
The jurors are about to hear Mary's interrogation tape, where she says she snapped because of Matthew.
He would knock your self-esteem down?
No, just chewing whatever. And that's the problem. I have nerve now, and I have self-esteem, and so my ugly came out.
Just kind of got to a boiling point. Just boil over?
There's no sense, you know, just say the lady was a moron, evil woman, and let's go on with it.
Prosecutors bring out that big, powerful shotgun that was used to kill Matthew. The point being to show the jurors that this could not have been an accident.
You couldn't just pick the gun up and pull the trigger unless it had been racked.
Could you prime it or pump it or whatever it takes to get it in a functioning position? Could you do that?
Yes, sir.
By racking the shotgun, it places a shotgun shell in the chamber so it can be fired. The fact that she did tells me she had already thought in her mind what it was going to be like to shoot that shotgun. All that leads me to believe premeditation.
But to rebut the prosecution's theory of premeditated murder, the defense will call their star witness.
The defense calls the defendant, Mary Carol Winkler.
The only person alive who knows exactly what happened the day Matthew was killed.
Somebody said to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
The most important witness in this trial, the one that everyone anticipated, takes the stand. And she testifies to some pretty shocking stuff.
The jury has just heard audio of Mary Winkler's interrogation, where she seems to imply that she suddenly snapped because of her husband Matthew's treatment of her.
I have nerve now, and I have self-esteem, and so my ugly came out.
Prosecutors tell the jury that Mary's real motive for the killing had nothing to do with Matthew's treatment of her. Instead, they say that the motive was about that alleged financial fraud they claim she was knee-deep in.
This was a premeditated act because Mary Winkler was in control.
Although investigators believe that the money was the motive in this case, they never charged Mary with any financial crimes.
She was the one that handled the finances. The finances were in shambles.
A bank investigator testifies that Mary had allegedly been scamming banks out of thousands of dollars by writing checks to herself and then floating money from one account to another.
These deposits were drawn off of the same bank, First State Bank, and were deposited within days of each other into the ATM at Regions.
So this check from Mary Winkler to Mary Winkler for $2,000 was deposited in the Mary Winkler personal account on March 20th, 2006.
Correct.
March 22nd, 2006, Mary Winkler and her husband Matthew were supposed to go to the bank and explain where the money came from, where the money went, and how they were going to pay it back.
The house of cards which she had set up was falling down. March 22nd was the day it ended up that he was shot.
The prosecution claimed that Mary killed her husband Matthew because of the deep financial hole that she had dug for herself. But when it was the defense's turn, they painted a very different picture of Mary, claiming she was the victim in this case and Matthew was the villain.
Mary Winkler appeared to have had a marriage made in heaven, but behind closed doors, it was a living hell. The proof will show that Mary was his whipping boy.
Part of the defense strategy was to put Matthew on trial. They put on the stand a church secretary who claimed she overheard some really harsh words coming from Matthew to Mary.
The tone, the sounds were of anger, berating.
What did you say to Matthew?
Those are things that a husband shouldn't say to a wife. You are to be a leader by example and not by force.
Another witness to take the stand was Mary's own sister, Tabitha. And she said Mary complained that Matthew tried to keep her away from her family and control her every move.
How would he act to her?
He pretty much dictated anything that she did. She wasn't allowed to make any decisions for herself. She would have to say, I have to check with Matt, and it was usually no.
There was testimony from the defense about how Matthew could act aggressively, but there was not a lot of information. And the jury may have thought, well, if he was this awful man, wouldn't more people have seen more?
Defense ready to call its next witness.
We are, Your Honor.
But the defense then called Mary herself, and she testified in explicit detail.
The defense calls the defendant, Mary Carol Winkler,
about exactly what she said happened behind closed doors.
Miss Winkler, if you'll come forward, please, ma'am.
As she took the stand, all eyes in the courtroom were riveted on Mary.
Mary Winkler was up there, appearing meeker than you would think anyone could. For much of the testimony, it appeared to be her head was down in shame.
Now remember, the state argued that Mary intentionally killed her husband to cover up a messy web of alleged fraudulent check kiting. But on the stand, Mary had a simple answer. Matthew made her do it.
Who directed those deposits?
Matthew told me where to put them, and I put them in the bank.
Mary also testified that Matthew knew that the banks were demanding answers over the financial issues with their accounts.
He was upset, and I just tried to continue encouraging him if he would please go in and do that.
Did he say he would?
He said he would, but he had been saying that for weeks.
Mary explained to the jury that she didn't stand up for herself because she was so afraid of Matthew's volatility, his temper.
How did he act when he yelled and screamed at you?
He flailed. He just was all over. He would just be furious. He went from certain threats to more serious threats.
Can you be specific to the jury about any threats?
He told me one time that he was going to cut the brake lines out of the van. He threatened me with the shotgun many times, putting it in my face. He told me if I ever talked back to him, that he would cut me into a million pieces.
Dan and Diane Winkler sat through a trial where they heard some awful things about their son, and it had to be very difficult for them. And their faces were stoic, but you could also see how it was affecting them too.
When I asked her about abuse, I said, well, you know, did he physically abuse you? And she said, oh no. I believe her to this day that he never abused her.
There was no indication from any of the people interviewed that Mary had ever disclosed it to them as a friend, or it never came out about any physical abuse. She described Matthew as being a fine man, and there was never a hint of any abuse.
But it turns out that Mary's testimony about alleged abuse on the part of Matthew was just the tip of the iceberg. This case is moving in another direction.
The one question that nobody will forget is when Steve Faris handed her a bag.
What's in that sack, Mary? Put it up on the screen.
When she was testifying to all of this, oh my God, wow. This is amazing testimony. This is shocking testimony. Almost couldn't believe it.
On trial for the murder of her preacher husband, Matthew. Mary Winkler tells jurors that she was living in a marriage from hell.
I had asked Matthew to have a divorce, and he absolutely denied it. That would not be allowed.
That was not an option?
No, sir.
According to who?
Matthew.
Preachers can't get a divorce. People want to know, okay, how do you preach the things you preach and you're divorced?
Mary's defense team would also expose what they said was another dark side of the Winklers' marriage. one that would take this trial into a surprisingly different arena.
What's in that sack, Mary?
Shoe and a wig.
Show me the shoe that's in there. Put it up on the side there. Is that the kind of shoe that you would wear to church?
No, sir.
Where'd you get that wig, Mary?
From Matthew.
Well, why was that shoe bought, Mary?
Matthew wanted me to wear it to dress up.
Dress up for what purpose, Mary?
Sex.
When they brought out the shoe and the wig and put those on the witness stand, there was a gasp in the courtroom. It was just a moment in this case, I think, that everything turned. And then hearing the preacher's wife accuse her dead husband of all of these things that were not allowed in the Churches of Christ congregations. These were sins.
Mary testified that Matthew had porn up on a computer and wanted her to watch it.
What would occur after he'd ask you to look at the photographs?
Go have sex.
Did he ever ask you to engage in any type of sex that you felt was unnatural?
Yes, sir. He just wanted to have sex with my bottom.
Did it hurt you?
Yes, sir.
The people in the courtroom, when she was testifying to all of this, you could kind of see on their faces like, oh my God, wow, this is shocking testimony.
For the life of me, I have never understood how wearing platform shoes and a wig for your husband gives you the right to shoot him in the back with a shotgun.
While the details of the Winklers' sex life caused a huge buzz inside the courtroom, the questions at hand were why and how Matthew was shot to death. And for the very first time, people heard Mary talk about what she says happened that morning, describing how it all started with the cries of their baby daughter.
Matthew kicked me out of the bed. He just caught me somewhere in the low of my back and I was on the floor.
What happened next?
He walked out of the room and then I got up and went after him.
Mary said she then saw Matthew covering the baby's nose and mouth to keep her from crying, something that she said he had done before.
What was he doing?
Suffocating her. I said, could I please have her? He just threw his arms up and walked out and walked away from the crib.
Mary says she was so disturbed by this incident that she followed Matthew back to the bedroom and she wanted to confront him about it.
I just wanted to talk to Matthew.
What did you want to talk to him about?
I just wanted to stop being so mean.
Mary testified she was afraid to talk to her husband and then found herself holding Matthew's shotgun.
Do you remember ever having a gun, holding a gun?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember ever pointing a gun?
No, sir.
Did you pull the trigger?
No, sir.
Did you intentionally, purposefully kill your husband?
No, sir.
Did you love your husband?
Yes, sir.
You still love him?
Yes, sir.
Mary had been very vague and foggy about a gun going off, which is a classic defense statement. They use the passive voice. They don't say, I shot a gun. They say, a gun went off.
So what was it that led you into the position of accidentally shooting Matthew Winkler?
I just wanted to talk to him.
It wasn't an accident, was it?
Yes, sir.
You just wanted to talk to him and he wouldn't listen. So you shot him in the middle of the back while he was asleep. Now, has that memory come back to you, Ms. Winkler?
No, sir.
You recall telling Agent Carpenter you remember hearing a loud boom and remember thinking it wasn't as loud as I thought it would be.
I don't recall telling him that.
Do you remember today if you told Matthew that you were sorry and that you loved him?
Yes.
The defense called a licensed psychologist to the stand who had met with Mary several times, and she testified that the reason Mary might not be able to remember the details of the shooting was because she had been traumatized by Matthew's treatment of her.
It's my professional opinion that Mary does suffer from a post-traumatic stress disorder, and at the time that this occurred, she was in a dissociated episode where she was not able to think or plan the way she normally would be able to do.
After 10 days of evidence and testimony, it's time for closing arguments.
Unfortunately, Matthew Winkler couldn't practice what he was preaching. His problem was that of a bully. And what bullies do is they pick on people that are smaller than them. And I say to you that if you looked up spousal abuse in the dictionary, you're going to see Mary Winkler's picture looking back at you.
He was brutally, premeditatedly, and intentionally killed, shot in the middle of his back as he slept. He did not deserve to die. Justice demands one verdict, and that is guilty of murder in the first degree.
Now the jury has a big decision. Couldn't Mary have gotten out of a bad marriage some other way? Or is she just a cold-blooded killer? This very debate is going to spark some fireworks in that jury room.
So it got heated in the jury room?
It did, very much so. Oh, I was ready to come across that table and strangle her.
This morning, the jury is in deliberations, and Mary Winkler's fate hangs in the balance.
Emotions ran high as jurors seemed hopelessly divided on whether Matthew Winkler's death was murder or a fatal accident.
There was some that didn't feel like she should get anything. They were ready to let her walk. They felt like he deserved what he got. And then you had some that was like, yes, she was abused, but she did take a life, and that she should get something out of it.
We were very stressed during that time because we didn't know how to work it out.
So it got heated in the
It
jury
did,
room?
very much so.
I hear that you got frustrated because one of the jurors wouldn't even admit that she pulled the trigger.
Yes.
Refused to believe it.
And I looked at her and I was like, what? I was ready to come across that table and strangle her because I thought that was completely ridiculous.
The jury also had doubts about the prosecution's claim that Mary killed Matthew to avoid embarrassment over their alleged financial troubles.
People did not care about the money aspect of it. That was not what was on our minds.
Even though she was called by the bank to go see them the next day, the day he was shot?
No, at the very forefront was the abuse. It never wavered from the forefront of our thoughts.
The jurors could convict Mary of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, voluntary or involuntary manslaughter, and it's anyone's guess where they were going to go.
And now you are looking at a live picture inside the courtroom. There you see Matthew Winkler's family, and they're all waiting for the jury.
After 8 hours of deliberation, the jury had finally reached a verdict.
And members of the jury are expected to read that verdict coming up momentarily.
Ms. Winkler, if you could please stand, ma'am.
And in true Mary Winkler fashion, she remained stoic as the verdict was read.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Mary C. Winkler, guilty of voluntary manslaughter.
There was a little bit of a gasp in the audience. I don't know that many people expected her to be convicted of anything less than first-degree murder.
With voluntary manslaughter, there is an intent to kill, but you were provoked by something.
There you see Mary Winkler's father, and he looks a little bit surprised there.
To the shock of Mary's supporters and the dismay of Matthews, Mary will face just 3 to 6 years behind bars.
Would this jury have allowed Mary to walk free?
Part of them would have.
No comment.
They felt like she had already lived through prison with the life that she lived. and that it was justified and that she deserved to be free.
That's why you compromised and agreed to the lesser charge?
Yes, because I didn't want her to walk.
In Tennessee, 33-year-old Mary Winkler is awaiting sentencing after being found guilty of killing her preacher husband.
Mary, how you feeling?
On June 8, 2007, everyone gathered in the courtroom for Mary's sentencing as she pled for mercy.
I think of Matthew every day in the guilt, and I'll always miss him and love him. There were bad times, but there were good times, and I wish I could have that good Matthew and that we could live together forever.
If I were Matthew's parents, that statement would have felt like a kick in the teeth. It was so disregarding of their feelings on facing this reality.
Matthew was a wonderful person. He loved life, he loved his family, he loved the Lord God with all of his heart and soul and mind. The monster that you have painted for the world to see, I don't think that monster existed. There's been no remorse from you. You've never told your girls you're sorry. Don't you think you at least owe them that? You've never told us you're sorry. I think you at least owe us that.
I can understand why a mother would more than ask that. And I would think a mother, as in Mary, would also want to apologize. The damage is done.
When the judge handed down the sentence, you could have heard a pin drop in that room.
The defendant is hereby sentenced to a term of 3 years. Her sentence is to be served in split confinement with 210 days of incarceration with appropriate credit to be given.
With time served, Mary Winkler spent only 1 more week in jail in this very cell, and then 60 days in a mental health facility. To her supporters, it was a clear victory, but to others, it was nothing more than a slap on the wrist.
People were very shocked by that sentence and really couldn't believe it.
Matthew's parents had to feel betrayed by the system. They had to feel as if the jury had been played.
When you found out that she was going to get such a short sentence, what went through your mind?
I was heartbroken, actually. I felt like I had failed. I felt like I had failed, like I didn't do my part, that I had let her off.
I believe she should have served more time, but we did what we did because that was all we could do.
After the trial, the town of Selma remained divided over whether Mary really got justice. Meanwhile, for Mary, the saga isn't over.
After the sentencing, the public thought, okay, that's it. They've heard everything, but it was not.
She wasn't finished talking. She wanted to tell her story to everyone.
Hey. Hi, Oprah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Tell me why you wanted to have this conversation today.
After serving an additional 7 days in jail, Mary Winkler finished out the remainder of her sentence at an undisclosed mental health facility. And while there, she had a visitor on the weekends. Turns out, while she had been working at the dry cleaners, she struck up a relationship with her boss's brother. His name, Darryl Pillow.
I saw interest in Mary, and I thought Mary saw interest in me.
Darryl Pillow says sparks flew. It was instant attraction when he first met Mary at his brother's dry cleaners.
I was attracted to Mary. I mean, we do have a lot in common. You know, we laugh, we got the same hobbies. It felt very normal. It felt like it was meant to be, you know, that we was meant to be together. I know the first time that we sat on the couch and I hugged her and she said, oh, this is, you know, I missed this, you know, and that's what she needed. She needed somebody to hold her and hug her.
I remember hearing that she may have had a new acquaintance.
She was just a very sweet girl. I mean, it's just, it felt normal to be with Mary. Now, I never felt scared or threatened. Our relationship was on, we had an adult relationship.
Even though Mary was in a mental health facility, Darrell says he would come to visit her on weekends. The two were able to get closer, and he says they even got to the point where they discussed marriage.
We kind of joked around about it, you know, but it wasn't nothing serious. It's not like we set a date or, you know, maybe years down the road it may happen. I don't know. But it, you know, the option's there.
But soon after Mary was released from the facility, Darrell says she ended things with him.
She just said, Darrell, I've got to be single right now. And I said, that's fine. She needs to be focused on her children, and that's where she's at right now. She is focused on her children.
Since her arrest, even though she had visitation rights, Mary's 3 daughters had been living with Matthew's parents, Diane and Dan Winkler.
But once back in McMinnville and now living with friends, Mary is on a mission to get those 3 girls back.
Mary's got a long way to go, but she's on her road. She's on the way. She's gonna make it. Since she's gotten back home, the Mary that we came to know and love, the grinning, the cutting up, you know, she's back.
Mary was determined to fight, and one way she could do that was by being the perfect parolee.
How do you think her time in jail impacted her life?
Well, she had time to think about what happened, I'm sure, and reflect on what she had done, and I'm sure she wanted to get out so she'd get back with her children as soon as possible. Her children are very important to her.
She lives and breathes every day for those girls. What she wants to do is get on with her life, let people leave her alone, get her girls back, and mourn her husband. That's her words.
Now back home, the once shy and demure former preacher's wife, who wanted a quiet life, raised eyebrows again after making one of her first stops the Oprah Winfrey Show, telling Oprah she hoped by speaking out, her story might help others.
An Oprah exclusive. For the first time, Mary Winkler, the wife who killed her pastor husband.
Mary Winkler appeared on Oprah just as she appeared on the stand. Very soft-spoken, very meek and mild. And but I remember Oprah wasn't buying any of it. You know, Oprah didn't let her off the hook.
Was a shotgun in the baby's room?
No, we kept it in the closet. It's just, I can't, there's a lot of things that don't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, imagine, it doesn't make sense to me either.
I know.
She kept prying and asking her and just telling her, okay, help me make sense of this.
The gun is aimed at him at some point. Do you remember that?
Well, no, because when I heard the boom, I just took out of there and took off running.
And then Mary explained to Oprah the importance of getting those girls back.
I'm their mother.
You killed their father.
I did not want any of this to happen.
Even though the girls had been living at Matthew's parents' home, the Winklers wanted to formalize it. They filed a lawsuit to adopt their granddaughters and terminate Mary's parental rights.
Mary Winkler looked happy and confident when she walked into the courthouse in Huntington for another showdown with her former in-laws over custody of her 3 daughters.
But there's still one more turn to come in Mary's roller coaster ride of a life.
Her life seems to be normal, except for one thing.
One more startling secret to reveal.
Something else had happened to Mary Winkler that was surprising, shocking.
Since her arrest, Mary Winkler has been locked in a custody battle with Matthew's parents. And finally, after months without her children, they reach an informal agreement out of court, giving Mary permission to take her 3 daughters back.
My girls are my girls, and I'm their mother, and we were just put back together, and we picked up where we were separated.
I know.
Come here, Emma.
After finally getting her children back, Mary Winkler sits down for one more exclusive interview with Janice Broach to reveal yet another setback in her life.
Tonight, Mary Winkler is back, and she has a secret.
I had found out that Mary had been diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis.
My right hand and my right foot were completely disabled, could not use. And so I was very fortunate that I have been able to come back to full capacity.
17 years after she shot her husband, Mary Winkler lives a quiet life. But to this day, there are still lingering questions in Selmer about whether justice was served in her case.
I believe that she actually got away with murder of her husband. Justice was not served, in my opinion.
Was Mary Winkler a victim or a villain?
Both.
Did Mary get away with murder?
Yes, she did.
She's going to have to answer for what she did. It's not up to me to forgive her. What she did is between her and Matthew and his family and God.
As for Matthew's parents, this tragedy that befell their son is still painfully close to their hearts.
His father, Dan, can be seen giving a sermon in this Palm Beach Lakes Church of Christ video, posted on YouTube just last month.
18 years ago, trauma knocked on the front door of our house, and we lost a son. I live with that emptiness all of the time, and it's been almost 2 decades, but I remember the sound of his voice. And every time we sit down at a Christmas table as a family, there's an empty place.
A father still grieving. Our own John Quinones reached out to Mary Winkler at her home, but she told him she didn't want to talk about what happened all those years ago.
That's right, David. She said she's moved on and she's busy taking care of her 3 daughters. Those daughters are now 18, 24, and 26. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
In the study of criminological science, we are occasionally confronted with cases that present a profound dichotomy between the public face and individual, projects and the private actions they commit. These narratives are not merely accounts of tragic loss. They are complex studies in psychology illustrating how hidden motivations such as obsessive desires or compounding financial panic can drive seemingly ordinary individuals to execute deeply planned acts of violence. The task of the investigator, much like that of the criminal psychologist, is to peer beneath the structured facade of daily life, dismantle the constructed alibis, and rely on the patient compilation of physical, digital, and circumstantial evidence to reconstruct the truth. In the 2 extensive analyses that follow, we observe how the dedication of law enforcement officers combined with modern technological innovations successfully brought resolution to 2 communities devastated by calculated acts of domestic deception. Part 1. The Silent Witness of Paradise Ranch. The rolling landscape of Paso Robles, California, is characterized by its tranquil atmosphere, extensive oak groves, and sprawling agricultural estates. Halfway between the major urban centers of Los Angeles and San Francisco, it is traditionally regarded as a peaceful sanctuary. Within this quiet setting, 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum established her residence on a secluded property along El Faro Road, which she named Paradise Ranch. Nancy, a widow who lived alone following the passing of her husband, was a deeply respected member of the local community. She operated a successful downtown salon named the Strand and was known for her generous nature, her passion for horseback riding, and her active participation as a devout member of her local congregation. In the spring of 2018, Nancy prepared Paradise Ranch for potential sale, intending to simplify her personal responsibilities and devote herself fully to her missionary work. To prepare the estate, she engaged various local contractors and tradespeople to perform necessary structural and cosmetic repairs on the property. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a wedding party consisting of more than 20 guests arrived at Paradise Ranch, having rented the main Victorian residence for a weekend celebration. Nancy welcomed the guests warmly, introducing herself and indicating that she would be staying nearby in her personal ranch-style cottage on the property. The evening progressed without apparent incident, with the wedding party returning from their rehearsal dinner at a local winery around 10:30 in the evening and retiring shortly after midnight. The following morning, Saturday, May 5th, the tranquil routine of the estate was abruptly shattered. Amanda, Nancy's daughter, received an urgent communication indicating that her mother had failed to appear for a scheduled morning Bible study, a departure from her exceptionally reliable habits. Amanda requested that a neighbor inspect the cottage. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open and the television blaring with no sign of Nancy. Amanda hurried to the scene and conducted a brief survey of the dwelling, while Nancy's personal vehicle remained parked outside, and her purse, keys, cellular phone, and tablet computer were left undisturbed on a bench. A closer inspection revealed highly alarming details. 2 large poolings of blood on the floor, a blood-stained pillow, and distinct blood spatter on the headboard, cabinet, and adjacent walls. Recognizing that an act of extreme violence had occurred, Amanda immediately contacted emergency services. The investigative perimeter and the sifting of suspects. Upon arrival, the responding deputies secured the cottage, establishing a secure perimeter around Paradise Ranch. Senior investigators, including Reserve Detective Clinton Cole of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, recognized the gravity of the scene. The complete absence of forced entry suggested that the perpetrator had either surprised Nancy in her sleep or was someone familiar with the layout of the property. The immediate presence of more than 20 wedding guests on the property presented a complex logistical challenge. Each guest represented a potential person of interest who had ready access to the grounds. Investigators began the methodical process of conducting individual interviews. The bride, who was sleeping in the adjacent guest suite, separated from Nancy's quarters by only a single wall, reported that she had used earplugs and had heard absolutely no unusual sounds during the night. While these interviews were underway, a significant discovery was made 6-2. 7 miles away along La Ponza Road, an officer with the California Highway Patrol discovered several discarded items of bedding and clothing in the roadside brush. The items included a gingham print sheet set that matched the remaining linens in Nancy's cottage, along with a dress and personal clothing, items that Amanda identified as belonging to her mother. This evidence strongly indicated that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding, loaded into a vehicle, and transported from the scene in a severely injured or deceased state. Suspicion initially focused on one wedding guest who had not attended the group's rehearsal dinner on Friday night, remaining alone at the ranch. During follow-up inquiries, this individual became defensive and uncooperative, which investigators flagged as a potential behavioral indicator of guilt. To resolve this lead, detectives traveled to his residence in Northern California to conduct a detailed interview and request a voluntary deoxyribonucleic acid sample. The guest's wife provided photographic evidence verifying his location during the critical hours of Friday night, and his voluntary deoxyribonucleic acid profile did not match the biological evidence recovered from the cottage, effectively eliminating him from the inquiry. The investigation then turned to the various contractors who had recently worked on the estate. Attention focused on Sean Bloom, a general contractor with whom Nancy had experienced a contentious financial dispute. Nancy had terminated his services and withheld final payment until the close of escrow. In text messages recovered by investigators, Sean had expressed intense anger and threatened legal action. When interviewed, Sean openly acknowledged his frustration with Nancy, but cooperated fully, providing a voluntary buccal swab. The resulting analysis cleared him of any physical connection to the crime scene. Detectives also examined Nancy's estranged son, Chad. The relationship had been marked by years of silence and bitterness due to personal differences. Text messages from the night of Nancy's disappearance showed that she had reached out to him in an effort to reconcile. When approached by investigators, Chad refused to provide a voluntary biological sample. To resolve this lead, detectives initiated physical surveillance. After observing Chad consume several beverages in a public establishment and place the containers in his vehicle, deputies initiated a traffic stop, cited him for an open container violation, and retrieved the discarded bottles. Deoxyribonucleic acid testing subsequently cleared Chad of any involvement. The digital breakthrough, utilizing geofence technology. By the second week of the active investigation, conventional leads had been exhausted and the case threatened to stall. In an effort to bypass the investigative deadlock, the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office decided to employ a highly novel digital investigative method, a Google geofence search warrant. At the time, this represented one of the earliest applications of this technology within the state of California. A geofence search warrant allows law enforcement to establish a virtual three-dimensional boundary around a precise geographic location during a specific time frame, requiring service providers to identify any active mobile devices that recorded location data within that zone. To define the precise window of interest, analysts examined Nancy's phone records and discovered that an attempted 911 call had been placed from her device at 12:17 in the morning on the night of her disappearance. The call had lasted 40 seconds, indicating it had been instantly disconnected or terminated by an external force. This provided a definitive time stamp for the initial assault. When the geofence data was returned and processed, analysts filtered out the known devices belonging to the wedding guests. They observed a single, unidentified mobile device that recorded location data directly within Nancy's cottage at 1:33 in the morning and again at 1:52 in the morning. This device did not belong to Nancy, and its presence inside her personal living quarters in the quiet hours of the night was entirely unexplained. Upon obtaining a subsequent warrant for the subscriber information associated with the device's unique digital signature, investigators receive a name, Carlo Fuentes Flores. The dual psychology of Carlo Fuentes Flores. The identification of Carlo's device inside the cottage represented a critical turning point in the investigation. Carlo was a local painter who had worked extensively on the exterior of the buildings at Paradise Ranch in the weeks prior to Nancy's disappearance. During his initial brief interview with deputies, he had appeared exceptionally polite, mild-mannered, and cooperative, expressing fondness for Nancy and noting her kindness toward him. A comprehensive background check revealed that Carlo had no criminal record in either the United States or Mexico. He was regarded by his employer and peers as a professional, dedicated craftsman and a loving father. However, a deep forensic analysis of his digital history revealed a starkly different private life. Beneath his polite public exterior, Carlo harbored a secret world of heavy drinking, sexual obsessions, and illicit encounters. His search history revealed frequent, targeted searches for pornography featuring older women using terms that aligned significantly with Nancy's demographic. Further analysis of his phone records showed that he frequently searched for escorts in various cities and maintained over a dozen self-shot videos documenting physical encounters with different women. His employer recalled that Carlo's personal behavior had recently begun to deteriorate, marked by heavy drinking and requests for loans to fund trips to Las Vegas. To secure an arrest warrant, investigators needed to connect Carlo directly to the physical violence inside the cottage. Forensics had previously discovered a partial bloody handprint on the pillow inside Nancy's room, from which they had isolated an unknown male deoxyribonucleic acid profile. Special operations officers placed Carlo under physical surveillance. They followed him to a local restaurant where he dined with his wife and retrieved a plastic beverage bottle he left on the table. The laboratory confirmed that the Biological sample recovered from the bottle matched the profile found in the center of the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. Interrogation, location, and resolution. On December 18, 2018, detectives brought Carlo to the sheriff's station for a formal interview. Detectives Clinton Cole and Dave initially conducted the conversation in a professional, non-confrontational manner, establishing his familiarity with the property and his knowledge of Nancy's living quarters. Carlo initially maintained his cooperative facade, claiming he did not even know where Nancy's personal cottage was located on the ranch. As the detectives systematically presented the geographical tracking data and the definitive biological evidence, Carlo's composure collapsed. He became visibly shaken, admitted he had made a mistake, and began to speak. Initially, Carlo attempted to present Nancy's death as an accident, claiming he had returned to the property late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck her with his truck in the dark. He claimed he carried her inside the cottage to assist her, where she subsequently passed away. Detectives challenged this narrative, pointing out the presence of his handprint on a pillow used for suffocation. Carlo then abandoned the accident story and confessed to the full scope of his actions. He admitted he had traveled to the ranch with the explicit intention of engaging in a physical encounter with Nancy, falsely interpreting her past kindness as a sign of interest. He confessed that he entered her cottage around midnight, where he assaulted and raped her. When she attempted to resist and dial 911, he struck her repeatedly, causing the extensive blood spatter. To prevent her from reporting the crime, Carlo held a pillow over her face until she was suffocated. He then wrapped her body in the bedding, loaded her into his truck, and drove east into the remote interior of the county. Carlo agreed to lead investigators to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. Detectives placed him in a vehicle and followed his directions due east from Templeton. The journey lasted approximately an hour, transitioning into the arid, vast terrain of the Carrizo Plain near the Kern County border. After several incorrect attempts to identify the location, Carlo directed the team to a remote patch of wilderness. Detective Cole observed a small, unnatural pile of rocks stacked in a circle. Upon closer inspection, investigators discovered skeletal remains, including a skull and major limb bones scattered by animal activity. Carlo fell to his knees and wept, expressing remorse for his actions and requesting that detectives convey his apologies to his daughter. Carlo was arrested and charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances, including murder committed during the commission of a rape and burglary. In January 2022, rather than proceeding with a standard jury trial, Carlo opted for a slow plea, allowing the judge to review all the compiled evidence to determine guilt. This allowed him to preserve his right to appeal while avoiding a prolonged public trial. The judge found Carlo Fuentes Flores guilty on all counts and sentenced him to life. In the study of criminal psychology, we frequently observe a phenomenon known as the mask of normalcy. It is a comforting illusion, a carefully constructed facade that allows individuals harboring deep-seated malice to walk among us, undetected in our most peaceful communities. To their neighbors, co-workers, and even their families, these individuals appear entirely ordinary, perhaps even exceptionally kind or industrious. Yet beneath this surface lies a cold, calculating drive, often fueled by greed, desperation, or hidden impulses. When the mask finally slips, it reveals a stark contrast between the public persona and the private reality. This narrative explores two profound cases where peaceful communities were shattered by acts of violence hidden behind such masks. The first takes us to the snow-capped mountain towns of Summit County, Utah, where a mourning widow portrayed herself as a compassionate guide for grieving children, while investigators quietly assembled a puzzle of financial ruin, secret affairs, and lethal substances. The second leads to the sun-drenched vineyards and oak-lined hills of Paso Robles, California, where a beloved salon owner vanished from her ranch, leaving behind a baffling digital footprint that would eventually expose a quiet craftsman living a dark, secret double life. Through both accounts, we observe the meticulous, patient efforts of law enforcement and forensic science as they dismantle these illusions, proving that even the most carefully hidden truths will eventually come to light. In the picturesque mountain valleys of Utah, the community of Heber City and the affluent enclave of Park City are places where families seek a quiet, wholesome existence. It was here that Corey Richens built her life. To those who watched her on local television in early 2023, she appeared to be the very definition of resilience and maternal devotion. She stood before the cameras to promote her self-published children's book titled Are You With Me?, which she explained was written to help her 3 young sons, aged 10, 9, and 6, cope with the sudden, tragic loss of their father. With a soft, earnest demeanor, Corey shared her story of grief, explaining how her 39-year-old husband, Eric Richens, had passed away unexpectedly the previous year. She spoke of the profound struggle of navigating nights, which she described as the hardest time for any grieving family. She explained that her book was born from her own desperate search for literature that could help her boys understand that although their father was no longer physically present, his love and spirit remained with them. To the viewers at home, she was a brave young mother, turning her personal tragedy into a source of comfort for others. However, behind this touching public narrative lay a grim reality that had begun to unfold in the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022. At approximately 3 in the morning, Corey called 911, her voice frantic as she reported that her husband was cold to the touch and not breathing. Dispatchers guided her through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, instructing her to count the compressions out loud. When officers and paramedics arrive at the family's home, they found Eric lying on his back on the bedroom floor, despite their immediate efforts and the use of a cardiopulmonary resuscitation machine. Eric had no pulse and was pronounced dead at 3:58 in the morning. As law enforcement officers began to document the scene, they noted several unusual details. Paramedics observed that Eric appeared to have been deceased for some time before the 911 call was placed. Furthermore, there was a surprising amount of blood present, which initially led first responders to hypothesize that Eric might have suffered a sudden brain hemorrhage or aneurysm. When questioned by the responding deputy, Corey explained that they had been celebrating a successful real estate transaction earlier that evening, sharing a drink at 9 o'clock to toast her business. She claimed she then went to sleep in her children's room because one of her sons was experiencing night terrors. When she woke up and returned to her own bedroom, she said she found her husband unresponsive because Eric was a young, active, and seemingly healthy 39-year-old man. The medical examiner's office was legally required to conduct a thorough forensic investigation. Eric was known in his community as an athletic outdoorsman, a dedicated father, and a successful business owner who ran C&E Masonry, a highly profitable stone masonry enterprise. The idea that he had simply passed away in his sleep from natural causes seemed highly improbable to those who knew him. The true cause of Eric's death was revealed when the toxicology report was finalized. The analysis did not show a ruptured aneurysm. Instead, the medical examiner discovered a lethal concentration of fentanyl in Eric's system. The dosage was astronomical, measuring 5 times the amount required to kill an average human. Crucially, the substance was identified as acetylphenyl, a highly illicit variant commonly manufactured by drug cartels rather than pharmaceutical companies. This finding immediately transformed the case from a tragic medical anomaly into a criminal investigation. Sheriff's detectives began a quiet, comprehensive examination of the Richens household, seeking to identify the source of the lethal substance, while Corey maintained that she was shocked by the findings and insisted that Eric did not use illicit drugs. Eric's family immediately voiced their suspicions to law enforcement. They painted a picture of a marriage that was far from the perfect domestic partnership Corey presented to the public. According to Eric's family, the couple's relationship had been strained for several years, primarily due to financial deception. In 2020, Eric discovered that Corey had taken out a line of credit for $250,000 against their home, a property that Eric owned solely. She had secured these funds by forging his signature, utilizing the money to support her rapidly expanding real estate and home flipping business, K. Richens Realty. This discovery devastated Eric, destroying his trust in his wife and prompting him to consult a divorce attorney. Although they chose to attend counseling and did not separate, Eric took decisive steps to protect his assets and his children's future. He quietly modified his estate planning, creating a trust that named his 3 young sons as the primary beneficiaries and designated his sister, Katie, as the executor and trustee. He also transferred the ownership of their family home into the trust, ensuring that Corey would not inherit the property or his successful masonry business in the event of his death. The depth of the animosity between Corey and Eric's family erupted into the open. Just 2 days after Eric's passing, upon realizing that Eric's will was stored in a house safe, Corey hired a locksmith to gain entry. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived at the home and confronted Corey, leading to a heated, physical altercation. Amy informed Corey that Eric had secretly altered his estate plans and that she was largely excluded from the inheritance. The dispute escalated to the point that law enforcement was called and Corey was subsequently charged with and convicted of assault after pleading no contest. As detectives delved deeper into the financial records, they realized that Corey was facing an overwhelming mountain of debt. She was attempting to purchase a massive, unfinished luxury mansion in Midway, Utah, for nearly $3 million, planning to complete the construction and sell it for a significant profit. To fund this ambitious project, she had relied heavily on high-interest, hard money loans, without the influx of capital from Eric's estate or his life insurance policies. Her financial empire was on the verge of total collapse. The financial desperation was further illustrated by the experiences of those who did business with her. Her close friend, Chelsea Barney, had entrusted Corey with $45,000 as a down payment on a home, only to discover later that the deed had never been properly filed, resulting in the foreclosure of the property and the eviction of Chelsea's family. Another family, the Wrights, purchased a remodeled home from Corey, only to find the walls filled with hidden mold and water damage, leading to severe health issues, a lawsuit, and eventual financial ruin. As the criminal investigation intensified, detectives began to uncover a pattern of suspicious illnesses in Eric's past. During a vacation to Greece in 2019, Eric became violently ill after drinking a beverage ordered for him, prompting him to call his sister and express fear that his wife was attempting to poison him. More recently, on Valentine's Day in 2022, Corey purchased a sandwich for Eric from a local diner. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe allergic reaction, requiring his sons epinephrine auto-injector and Benadryl. He survived the incident but sent text messages to his friends stating, "I think she might have poisoned me." The breakthrough in the investigation came from a meticulous analysis of Corey's phone records. A private investigator hired by Eric's family identified frequent communications between Corey and a woman named Carmen Lauber, who had a history of drug-related offenses. This information was forwarded to Detective Jeff O'Driscoll of the Summit County Sheriff's Office. Following a search of Carmen's residence, which revealed drug paraphernalia and a copy of Eric's obituary taped to a mirror, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. Carmen revealed to investigators that Corey had approached her on two separate occasions prior to Eric's death, requesting that she procure strong pain medication, specifically fentanyl. Carmen stated that she delivered the drugs to Corey, who later requested an even stronger dose, claiming the first batch was not powerful enough. This second delivery occurred on February 26th, just days before Eric's fatal overdose. In addition to the financial motive and the drug transactions, prosecutors uncovered a romantic element to the crime. Corey had been engaged in a long-term, secret affair with a 41-year-old handyman named Josh Grossman. Text messages between the two revealed a passionate relationship with Corey, repeatedly expressing her desire to be with Josh and imagining a future where she would divorce Eric, secure millions of dollars, and live with Josh in the guest house of the Midway Mansion. 48 hours before Eric's death, Corey sent a text to Josh, urging him to hang in there until Friday, promising him that life was about to change. In May 2023, Corey Richens was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and multiple drug distribution counts. While held in the Summit County Jail, a routine search of her cell uncovered a handwritten, 4-page letter addressed to her mother. The letter, which began with the phrase, "walk the dog," instructed her mother to have her brother Ronnie testify falsely that Eric had been obtaining fentanyl from ranch workers in Mexico. The prosecution presented this letter as clear evidence of witness tampering and consciousness of guilt, while the defense argued it was merely a draft of a fictional manuscript. The trial of Corey Richens began in a small courthouse near Park City, Utah, drawing national attention. The prosecution, led by Brad Bloodworth, presented a compelling chronological narrative of greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded calculation. They called key witnesses, including Eric's sister Katie, who delivered a heartbreaking testimony about the loss of her brother, and Carmen Lauber, who detailed the drug transactions. Josh Grossman also took the stand, visibly emotional as his private text messages with Corey were displayed for the jury. In a move that stunned the courtroom, Corey's defense team, newly appointed public defenders Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis, chose to rest their case without presenting any witnesses or evidence. They argued that the prosecution had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt how the fentanyl was actually administered to Eric, pointing out the lack of physical forensic evidence in the home. The jury of 8 members, consisting of 6 men and 2 women, deliberated for just under 3 hours. They returned a unanimous verdict of guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder. The reading of the verdict brought a sense of quiet relief and justice to Eric's family, who had fought tirelessly to honor his memory. Corey's parental rights were subsequently terminated, and her 3 young sons were adopted by Eric's sister, ensuring they would grow up surrounded by love and stability, far removed from the tragic web of deception that had claimed their father's life. As we transition from the snow-covered valleys of Utah to the coastal hills of California, we encounter another study in contrast. In criminal psychology, we recognize that the geography of a place often shapes our perception of safety. Paso Robles, California, is a region defined by its natural beauty, its rolling hills dotted with ancient oak trees, and its thriving world-class wineries. It is a destination where people escape the frantic pace of metropolitan life to find solace in the scenic landscape. Yet in May 2018, this idyllic setting became the backdrop for a deeply unsettling mystery that would challenge the local community's sense of security. Nancy Woodrum was a 62-year-old resident of Paso Robles, deeply rooted in her community. She was a warm, vibrant woman who operated a popular downtown hair salon called The Strand, where she worked alongside her daughter, Amanda. Nancy was known for her generous spirit, her deep religious faith as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and her love for horseback riding. After the passing of her husband, Robert, Nancy lived alone on a scenic, secluded property on El Faro Road, which the family had lovingly restored and named Paradise Ranch. The ranch featured a beautiful two-story Victorian home that served as a popular vacation rental, while Nancy lived in a smaller, adjacent cottage on the property. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a wedding party consisting of more than 20 guests checked into the main house to celebrate a vineyard wedding over the weekend. Nancy welcomed the guests with her characteristic warmth and hospitality, introducing herself to the bride before retiring to her cottage. The following morning, Saturday, May 5th, Amanda became alarmed when her mother failed to appear for a scheduled Bible study. Such an absence was entirely uncharacteristic of Nancy, who was devoutly committed to her faith. Amanda requested that a neighbor check on her mother's cottage. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and Nancy nowhere to be found. When Amanda rushed to the property, she discovered a scene that filled her with immediate dread. Her mother's purse, keys, cell phone, and tablet were still inside the cottage, and her two vehicles remained parked outside. However, the bedding from Nancy's bed was missing, and there were large, unmistakable bloodstains on the carpet, the headboard, and a remaining pillow. Amanda immediately called 911 to report her mother missing under highly suspicious circumstances. The San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office dispatched deputies and detectives to the scene, including Senior Deputy Clinton Cole. Upon surveying the cottage, Cole recognized that this was not a simple missing persons case. It was an active crime scene. The absence of forced entry suggested that Nancy had either been surprised in her sleep or had opened the door to someone she recognized. The urgency of the investigation intensified that evening when an officer from the California Highway Patrol discovered several items discarded along La Ponza Road, approximately 6 miles from Paradise Ranch. The items included stained gingham bedding, a pillow, a dress, a pair of shorts, and a shirt. Amanda viewed the items and confirmed with a heavy heart that they belonged to her mother. The presence of blood on the bedding suggested that Nancy had been severely injured and transported from her home against her will. The investigative team faced an immediate challenge. With more than 20 wedding guests staying on the property, there was a large pool of potential individuals who had physical access to Nancy's cottage. Detectives began the arduous task of securing search warrants and interviewing every guest. One male guest initially drew suspicion due to inconsistent statements regarding his whereabouts during the rehearsal dinner on Friday evening. However, detectives visited his residence in Northern California, verified his presence in photographs taken at the dinner, and cleared him of any involvement. He also voluntarily provided a deoxyribonucleic acid sample. Detectives also examined individuals who had recently performed work on Paradise Ranch, as Nancy had been preparing the property for sale. A general contractor named Sean Bloom, who had engaged in a heated financial dispute with Nancy after being dismissed from a renovation job, was identified as a person of interest. Bloom had previously sent threatening messages to Nancy regarding unpaid funds. However, when contacted by investigators, Bloom cooperated fully, providing his deoxyribonucleic acid, which did not match the evidence found at the scene. Another line of inquiry focused on Nancy's estranged son, Chad. The relationship between Nancy and Chad had been strained for several years, primarily due to religious differences, and Chad had not spoken to his mother face-to-face in 5 years. However, records indicated that Nancy had reached out to Chad via text message on the evening of her disappearance, attempting to find common ground. Chad initially refused to provide a deoxyribonucleic acid sample to investigators, citing a deep distrust of law enforcement. Detectives placed him under surveillance, witnessed him driving with an open container of alcohol, and subsequently arrested him, allowing them to legally obtain his deoxyribonucleic acid from discarded beer bottles. Chad was ultimately cleared of any involvement. With traditional investigative leads exhausted and the community growing increasingly anxious, detectives decided to utilize a novel crime-fighting tool: geofencing. This technology allowed investigators to establish a virtual boundary or fence around Paradise Ranch and request that Google identify any devices that were active within that specific area during a precise time frame. The timeline had been narrowed significantly by a critical discovery in Nancy's phone records. A 911 call had been attempted from Nancy's phone at 12:17 in the morning on Saturday, May 5th, but the call had been abruptly terminated after 0 seconds, indicating that someone had forced her to hang up. When Google returned the geofence data, investigators analyzed the digital footprints. While the wedding guest devices were accounted for, detectives noticed a single unidentified device that had pinged inside Nancy's studio apartment at 1:33 and 1:52 in the morning, the exact window during which they believed Nancy had been taken. Investigators secured a subsequent warrant to obtain the subscriber information for the device. The results revealed that the phone belonged to Carlo Fuentes Flores, a local painter who had recently completed work on Nancy's cottage. This revelation surprised investigators, as Fuentes Flores had been interviewed briefly during the initial phase of the investigation and had appeared to be a mild-mannered, highly cooperative, and hard-working family man with no prior criminal record. A deep forensic analysis of Fuentes Flores' phone and digital history began to peel away his mask of normalcy, revealing a dark double life. While he presented himself to the world as a devoted father and a skilled craftsman, his search history was filled with searches for mature women, escorts, and adult pornography. Investigators also discovered numerous self-recorded videos of sexual encounters on his phone, indicating a hidden, highly active life of secret impulses. To secure an airtight case, detectives placed Fuentes Flores under surveillance, waiting for an opportunity to obtain his deoxyribonucleic acid without alerting him to their suspicions. When he dined at a local restaurant with his wife, detectives retrieved a discarded Coca-Cola bottle from his table. The forensic laboratory extracted a deoxyribonucleic acid profile from the bottle and compared it to the bloodstains found on the pillow in Nancy's room, which included a partial handprint left by the assailant. It was a perfect match. Armed with this definitive forensic evidence, detectives Clinton Cole and Dave interrogation team brought Fuentes Flores in for questioning. He initially maintained his innocence, claiming he had only been on the property during normal working hours and had always found Nancy to be kind and respectful. However, as the detectives gradually revealed the depth of their evidence, letting him know that they had tracked his phone to the property in the middle of the night, Fuentes Flores' demeanor shifted. He broke down, claiming that he had returned to the property late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck Nancy with his vehicle. He claimed he brought her inside to help her, but she collapsed. Detectives recognized this as a common minimization technique often used by guilty individuals attempting to avoid the full consequences of their actions. As the pressure continued, Fuentes Flores finally confessed to the true nature of his actions. He admitted that he had gone to Nancy's home with the intent to sexually assault her. He entered her cottage, woke her, raped her, and then smothered her with a pillow to prevent her from identifying him. He then loaded her body into his truck, wrapping her in her own bedding, which subsequently blew out of the truck bed onto La Ponza Road during his escape. In a dramatic turn, Fuentes Flores offered to lead detectives to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. He guided them on a long, somber journey to the remote, desert-like landscape of the Carrizo Plain on the border of Kern County. In the fading light, Detective Cole spotted a small, unnatural pile of rocks. Beneath them, investigators discovered Nancy's remains, which had been partially scattered by local wildlife. The recovery brought a tragic, solemn closure to the search, confirming the family's worst fears but allowing them to bring Nancy home. While held in jail, Fuentes Flores made recorded phone calls to his wife, admitting to the crime and expressing regret for his actions. To avoid a lengthy and painful trial for Nancy's family, the defense agreed to a slow plea process, where the prosecution presented its written evidence directly to the judge. The judge reviewed the extensive documentation, including the confessions, the geofence data, and the deoxyribonucleic acid matches, and found Fuentes Flores guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the sentencing hearing, Nancy's family, including her daughter Amanda, delivered powerful victim impact statements expressing the profound void left by her passing. Nancy was remembered not for the tragedy of her death, but for the beauty, faith, and joy she brought to everyone she touched. Today, Amanda continues her mother's passion for horses and the outdoors, riding through the hills of Paso Robles, keeping Nancy's spirit alive. In analyzing both Corey Richins and Carlo Fuentes Flores, we observe how the criminal mind often relies on the belief that a respectable public persona can shield them from the consequences of their darkest desires. Corey believed her role as a successful business owner and a devoted mother would protect her from suspicion, even as she used her talent for writing to construct a narrative of grief around her own crime. Fuentes Flores relied on his reputation as a quiet, polite craftsman to mask a deeply troubled, secret personal life. Yet, in both cases, the meticulously gathered evidence from digital tracking and forensic toxicology to financial audits and deoxyribonucleic acid analysis dismantled these facades. The efforts of dedicated investigators and forensic scientists in Utah and California demonstrated that the truth cannot be permanently hidden behind a mask. Ultimately, these cases serve as a testament to the resilience of families, the dedication of the justice system, and the triumph of truth over deception. In the study of criminal psychology, we often find ourselves examining the concept of the constructed narrative. Human beings are storytelling creatures. We organize our lives, our ambitions, and our grief into structured tales that help us navigate the complexities of existence. However, when the human mind tilts toward malice, the power of storytelling can be weaponized. Some individuals do not merely commit crimes. They attempt to write themselves into a completely different reality, fabricating a public persona designed to mask a dark and desperate truth. This analysis explores two extraordinary cases where the public face of the accused stood in stark contrast to their hidden motivations. The first is the tragedy of Eric Richins, a devoted father and successful businessman in Utah, whose wife attempted to orchestrate a narrative of profound public mourning, while hiding a trail of financial ruin and betrayal. The second is the disappearance of Nancy Woodrum, a beloved community pillar in California, whose quiet life was shattered by a man who managed to project an image of polite, hardworking normalcy while harboring deep, dark impulses. In both instances, the pursuit of justice required investigators to look past the carefully constructed stories of the perpetrators and follow the silent, indelible evidence left behind. In the quiet mountain community of Kamas, Utah, the scenery is dominated by towering peaks and an air of peaceful isolation. It is the kind of place where families put down roots, businesses thrive on handshakes, and the troubles of the wider world feel distant. But in the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022, that peace was shattered by a call to 911. At a little after 3 in the morning, Corey Richens placed a frantic call to emergency services. Her husband, Eric, was unresponsive. In the recording of that call, her voice carries a tone of desperate urgency as she is instructed to perform chest compressions. The operator counts the rhythm, urging her to keep going, to count out loud so the efforts can be verified. Within minutes, paramedics, firefighters, and law enforcement officers arrived at the scene, their body-worn cameras capturing a chaotic and tense atmosphere. Inside the master bedroom, the reality of the situation was grim. Eric Richens, a healthy and athletic 39-year-old man, lay on his back on the floor. He had no pulse, and he was not breathing. Paramedics immediately deployed a automated cardiopulmonary resuscitation machine, its rhythmic mechanical thuds filling the room as deputies tried to make sense of the sudden tragedy. Corey stood nearby, visibly distressed, explaining the sequence of events to a deputy. She painted a picture of a quiet, celebratory evening. Hours earlier, she explained they'd been toasted to a major financial breakthrough in her real estate business. They had shared a drink at 9 o'clock to celebrate. Later, she said she went to sleep in one of her children's rooms because the boy was experiencing night terrors. When she awoke and returned to her own bed, she touched her husband and found him cold. As the officers asked routine questions about health conditions, Corey mentioned that Eric suffered from Lyme disease and occasionally took a tetrahydrocannabinol gummy to help him sleep. She maintained that he had no history of illicit drug use and that he had been fine just hours before. Her mother, Lisa Darden, arrived at the home shortly after, describing her son in law as pale the previous evening and suggesting that perhaps his weekly allergy shots had contributed to some unforeseen medical crisis. Yet, even in those first hours, there were details that did not align with a typical medical emergency. Paramedics noted an unusual amount of blood coming from Eric's mouth during resuscitation efforts, raising immediate questions. The initial hypothesis among some on the scene was a ruptured aneurysm, a tragic but natural explanation for a young, athletic man dying so suddenly. For the community and the friends who gathered to support Corey, the loss was incomprehensible. Eric was a pillar of the community a dedicated soccer coach, an avid outdoorsman, and a partner in a highly successful stone masonry business called C&E Masonry. He was a man who worked hard and played hard, deeply, committed to his 3 young sons, who were 10, 9, and 6 years old at the time. In the days following the death, friends and family gathered at the home to pay their respects. There was music, dancing, and a bittersweet celebration of Eric's life. His favorite song, a country track about living life to the fullest, was played. Corey was seen dancing with her sons, surrounded by a projection of light that some remarked felt like Eric's lingering presence. It appeared to be a moment of deep, shared grief. However, beneath the surface of this communal mourning, a severe division was forming. The morning after the gathering, a conflict erupted at the family home. Corey, determined to access Eric's will, had summoned a locksmith to open the family safe. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived and was outraged, asserting that Corey had no right to access the safe. The confrontation escalated to the point where law enforcement was called, and Amy alleged that Corey had physically assaulted her. Corey would later plead no contest to an assault charge stemming from this incident. More importantly, the dispute revealed a secret that Eric had kept from his wife. The family estate planner confirmed that in 2020, Eric had established a private trust. He had structured his assets so that his sister, Katie, was the trustee, and his 3 sons were the primary beneficiaries. The family home was placed within this trust, effectively leaving Corey with very little direct control over his estate. When this reality was made clear to Corey, her response was one of disbelief and anger. To the public, Corey maintained her role as the grieving widow. She began speaking about the difficulties of helping young children process the sudden loss of a parent, claiming she could find no suitable books on the subject. She announced that she had written a children's book titled Are You With Me? The book, created with the assistance of a ghostwriter, was written from the perspective of a child wondering if their deceased father was still present in their lives, followed by reassuring answers from the father's perspective. Corey dedicated the book to her husband, describing him as amazing and wonderful. In March of 2023, she embarked on a local media campaign, appearing on television and radio programs to promote the book and discuss her journey through grief. She presented herself as a vulnerable, strong mother fighting to keep her family together. But the narrative she had constructed was about to collide with forensic science. The county medical examiner was legally required to conduct an autopsy due to Eric's young age and the unexpected nature of his death. When the toxicology report was finalized, the findings were staggering. Eric Richens had not died of an aneurysm, nor had he suffered a natural medical crisis. The cause of death was acute drug intoxication, specifically from fentanyl. The level of the drug in his system was 5 times the lethal dosage. Furthermore, the substance detected was not medical-grade fentanyl prescribed by a practitioner, it was. Illicitly manufactured, the kind typically sourced from the black market. The revelation of a massive fentanyl overdose immediately transformed a tragic death inquiry into a homicide investigation. Detectives secured search warrants for the Richens residence, looking for physical evidence of the drug, but found nothing in the home. When Corey spoke with the chief medical examiner, she pressed for details, asking about the specific compounds found in the stomach. Contents, including acetyl fentanyl. The medical examiner confirmed that these were markers of illicitly manufactured drugs, leaving the question of how such a lethal dose entered Eric's system wide open. Eric's family was immediately suspicious of Corey. They provided investigators with a history of financial deception that painted a very different picture of the marriage. In 2020, Eric had discovered that Corey had taken out a $250,000 line of credit against the family home, a property that Eric owned solely, without his knowledge or consent. This discovery had shaken Eric deeply, prompting him to consult a divorce attorney and quietly alter his estate planning to protect his children. Although the couple engaged in counseling and remained together, the trust had been fundamentally broken. By the time of the arrest, investigators had painted a picture of Corey's financial state that was nothing short of disastrous. She had transitioned from residential real estate to high-stakes property flipping, embarking on her most ambitious project yet, a massive unfinished mansion in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million. To fund this and other projects, she had relied heavily on high-interest, short-term, hard-money loans. She was buried under millions of dollars of debt, and the expected windfall from her husband's estate was her only apparent way out. The financial strain had also taken a toll on those around her. Her close friend, Chelsea Barney, had entrusted Corey with $45,000 as a down payment for her first home. Corey had promised to handle the transaction, but Chelsea later discovered the deed had never been properly filed. The property was foreclosed upon, leaving Chelsea and her family evicted and financially devastated. Another family, the Wrights, purchased a remodeled home from Corey, only to find severe mold and water damage that forced them into foreclosure and temporary housing, leading to a lawsuit. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of past illnesses that Eric had experienced. In 2019, during a trip to Greece, Eric had become violently ill after consuming a drink. Because he was taking medication for Lyme disease that interacted poorly with alcohol, he had ordered a non-alcoholic beverage. He suspecting that the drink had been intentionally altered, and he called his sister expressing fear that his wife was attempting to harm him. Then, on Valentine's Day of 2022, just weeks before his death, Corey purchased a sandwich from a local establishment and brought it to Eric. After taking a single bite, Eric suffered a severe physical reaction. He was forced to use his son's epinephrine auto-injector and take antihistamines before falling into a deep sleep. Afterward, he texted a friend stating that he believe his wife had tried to poison him. The critical breakthrough in the criminal investigation came when detectives analyzed Corey's communication records. A private investigator hired by the Richens family had identified 3 primary contacts on Corey's phone during the months surrounding the death: her husband, her mother, and a woman named Carmen Lauber. Carmen Lauber had worked occasionally as a cleaner for Corey's real estate projects and possessed a history of drug-related offenses. Recognizing her as a vital link, detectives executed a search of her residence, uncovering drug paraphernalia and an unlicensed firearm taped to a mirror in her home. Investigators made a chilling discovery: a copy of Eric Richens' obituary. Facing substantial prison time, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. She revealed that Corey had approached her on multiple occasions, requesting strong pain medication and later specifically asking for fentanyl. Carmen admitted to procuring the drugs and leaving them at one of Corey's renovation properties. The timing of their communications was highly incriminating, with intense text traffic occurring on Valentine's Day and again just days before Eric's death. On May 8, 2023, Corey Richens was arrested and charged with aggravated murder and possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. During her subsequent bail hearings, prosecutors presented evidence of her internet search history retrieved from her electronic devices. The searches, conducted after she had been served with an initial search warrant, included inquiries about luxury prisons, whether law enforcement could recover deleted messages from an iPhone, what information appears on a death certificate if someone is poisoned, and what constitutes a lethal dose of fentanyl. While in custody at the Summit County Jail, further evidence of consciousness of guilt emerged. During a routine search of her cell, deputies discovered a handwritten 4-page letter commonly referred to as the walk the dog letter. In the letter, Corey instructed her mother to tell her brother, Ronnie, to testify to a fabricated story that Eric had obtained pain pills and fentanyl from workers at his ranch in Mexico. The defense argued the letter was a draft of a fictional manuscript, but prosecutors viewed it as a clear attempt at witness tampering. In March of 2024, prosecutors amended the charges to include attempted murder for the Valentine's Day poisoning incident. Around the same time, another critical witness came forward. A handyman named Josh Grossman revealed that he and Corey had been engaged in a clandestine romantic affair for years. The prosecution introduced text messages between Corey and Josh that revealed a deep emotional attachment and a desire to build a life together. In the weeks leading up to the death, Corey texted Josh, expressing her dream of divorcing, obtaining millions of dollars, and purchasing the Midway mansion to live in the guest house with him. Less than 48 hours before Eric was found dead, she sent a text to Josh, pleading with him to hang in there until Friday, promising that life will be different. Furthermore, Josh testified that in the weeks following Eric's death, Corey had taken him for a drive and asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his military service in Iraq, and how that experience had made him feel. When the trial commenced, the prosecution spent 13 days presenting a detailed case of financial desperation, secret poisoning attempts, illicit drug purchases, and a desire to escape a marriage for a new life. In a shocking turn of events, when the prosecution rested, Corey's defense team chose to present no witnesses and immediately rested their case. Corey waived her right to testify, leaving the jury to deliberate solely on the evidence presented by the state. After deliberating for just under 3 hours, the 8-member jury returned with a unanimous verdict. Corey Richins was found guilty of aggravated murder and the associated charges. The 3 young boys at the heart of this tragedy lost both of their parents, their father to a senseless act of violence, and their mother to a life sentence. In prison, they have since been adopted by one of Eric's sisters, surrounded by a family determined to preserve the memory of a loving, dedicated father who simply wanted the best for his sons. While the mountain valleys of Utah were grappling with the trial of Corey, Richins, a different kind of mystery, had unfolded years earlier in the sun-drenched hills of Paso Robles, California, known for its rolling vineyards, ancient oak trees, and scenic beauty. Paso Robles is a destination of quiet, luxury, and peaceful retreats. It is a place where people go to escape the noise of urban life. But down El Faro Road, nestled in a secluded valley, sits a property known as Paradise Ranch. In May of 2018, this beautiful estate was scheduled to host a joyous occasion, a weekend vineyard wedding. More than 20 guests, including the bride and her bridesmaids, had checked into the large, picturesque Victorian home on the property. The owner of Paradise Ranch was 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum. Nancy was a beloved fixture in the local community, having operated a popular hair salon called The Strand for many years. She was known for her warmth, her generous spirit, and her deep devotion to her faith as a Jehovah's Witness. Having experienced profound personal tragedy in her life, the loss of an infant son, the death of her teenage daughter from cystic fibrosis, and the sudden passing of her husband, Nancy had found solace in her beliefs and her love of horseback. Riding on Saturday, May 5th, 2018, Nancy's daughter, Amanda, received a concerning phone call. Her mother had failed to appear for a scheduled morning Bible study, an absence that was entirely uncharacteristic of her. Amanda asked a neighbor to check on her mother, who lived in a small apartment on the Paradise Ranch property. The neighbor arrived to find the front door wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. When Amanda arrived, she was met with a scene that immediately triggered panic. While Nancy's purse, car keys, cell phone, and vehicles were all present, her bedding was missing from the mattress. Upon closer inspection of the bedroom, Amanda discovered what appeared to be blood spatter on the walls, the headboard, and a pillow. She immediately called 911. Law enforcement responded quickly, recognizing that the scene indicated a violent abduction. Clinton Cole, a senior deputy with the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, arrived to coordinate the investigation. The presence of significant bloodstains on the floor and walls confirmed that a violent struggle had taken place inside the cottage. The investigation was immediately complicated by the presence of the wedding party, with over 20 guests staying just yards away from Nancy's dwelling. Detectives faced a massive pool of potential suspects. Paradise Ranch was highly remote, meaning that anyone on the property had immediate, unchallenged access to Nancy. That evening, the investigation received its first major lead. A California Highway Patrol officer discovered a bundle of bedding and women's clothing discarded along La Ponza Road, approximately 6 or 7 miles from the ranch. Amanda confirmed that the items, which bore significant bloodstains, belonged to her mother. It was clear that Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding and transported away from a scene. Detectives began the arduous task of interviewing every individual associated with the wedding party. One guest whose whereabouts during the Friday evening rehearsal dinner were initially unclear became a primary focus. He had remained at the ranch alone while the others attended the dinner. Detectives traveled to his residence in Northern California, ultimately verifying his alibi through photographs on his wife's phone and obtaining a voluntary DNA sample, which cleared him. Investigators then turned their attention to other individuals who had access to the property. Nancy had recently decided to sell Paradise Ranch to devote herself full-time to her religious ministry. Because of the impending sale, several contractors, painters, and plumbers have been working on the estate. Among them was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently been fired by Nancy after a heated dispute over payments. Bloom had threatened legal action, providing a potential motive for resentment. However, after initial reluctance, Bloom cooperated fully with investigators and provided a DNA sample that did not match the evidence found at the scene. Detectives also examined Nancy's family dynamics. She had an estranged son, Chad, with whom she had not spoken face to face in 5 years. The night before her disappearance, Nancy had reached out to him via text message, attempting to find common ground. Chad, who expressed a deep distrust of law enforcement, initially refused to provide a DNA sample. Detectives placed him under surveillance, retrieved a discarded beer bottle after he was cited for an open container violation, and submitted it for testing. Chad was subsequently cleared. The case appeared to be stalling. Weeks turned into months, and despite extensive searches of the surrounding foothills, creek beds, and wilderness areas using helicopters, search dogs, and volunteers, no trace of Nancy was found. However, investigators possessed a vital piece of forensic evidence. Crime scene. Technicians had discovered a faint, bloody handprint on the pillow left in Nancy's bedroom. A DNA profile of an unknown male was developed from this print. But when submitted to the national database, it yielded no matches, indicating the perpetrator had no prior felony record. Detectives also established a precise timeline of the crime. Telephone records revealed that an attempted 911 call had been placed from Nancy's phone. At 12:17 in the morning on the night she vanished. The call had lasted for 0 seconds, indicating it had been abruptly terminated almost immediately after dialing. With traditional investigative avenues exhausted, the sheriff's department decided to utilize a cutting-edge digital tool, geofencing. Securing a search warrant, investigators requested data from Google regarding any mobile devices that had been active within a virtual boundary drawn around Paradise Ranch during the precise hours surrounding the crime. The geofence data returned a series of anonymized device identifiers. While most belonged to the cleared wedding guests, investigators noticed a specific device that had pinged within the immediate vicinity of Nancy's cottage at 1:30, 3, and again at 1:52 in the morning. Investigators obtained a subscriber warrant for the device, revealing the owner to be Carlo Fuentes Flores. Carlo was a local painter who had been hired to work on the property. He was a quiet, polite family man with no criminal record in either the United States or Mexico. When initially interviewed as a routine witness, he had been cooperative, claiming he knew nothing of Nancy's disappearance and recalling her kindness in offering him tamales while he worked. With his phone placed at the scene of the crime during the exact hours of Nancy's abduction, detectives began a deep dive into his background. They uncovered a hidden digital life. Carlo's search history revealed a preoccupation with older women, frequently searching for adult content involving mature individuals, as well as soliciting escorts. Under active surveillance, detectives followed Carlo to a local restaurant where he had lunch with his wife. After he departed, investigators retrieved a plastic beverage bottle he had used. The DNA extracted from a bottle was a match to the bloody handprint found on the pillow. On the day of his interrogation, detectives placed Carlo in an interview room. They slowly walked him through his work on the property, establishing his familiarity with the layout of Nancy's residence. When confronted with the reality of the DNA evidence and his presence on the night of the disappearance, Carlo's demeanor collapsed. He initially attempted to frame the incident as a tragic accident, claiming he had returned to the ranch late at night to retrieve a ladder and had accidentally struck Nancy with his truck. He claimed he had carried her inside to assist her, but the explanation failed to account for the blood spatter and the DNA on the pillow. Under continued questioning, Carlo admitted to the full scope of the crime. He revealed that he had driven to the property with the intention of forcing himself upon her. He entered her apartment, assaulted her, and ultimately suffocated her with a pillow to prevent her from identifying him. In a stunning development, Carlo offered to lead detectives to where he had hidden Nancy's remains. He directed investigators on a long, somber drive eastward into the remote, arid landscape of the Carrizo Plain. In a shallow depression amidst the wilderness, under a pile of placed rocks, investigators discovered Nancy's remains. Following his confession and the recovery of the body, Carlo's defense team attempted to suppress his statements, arguing that as a native Spanish speaker, his understanding of his rights was flawed. However, jail telephone recordings revealed he spoke fluent English with his family, and the court ruled his confession admissible.